Hello everyone, my name is Dee and welcome to Books and Quirks. Today I'm going to be talking about two more classics and I'm really excited for these. I mean, not that I don't love the others as well, but one of these is one of my all-time favorites. So today I'm going to be talking about a book by Charles W. Chesnutt called The Marrow of Tradition. And after that book, I'll be talking about Tess of the Dubervilles by Thomas Hardy, and this one is one of my all-time favorites. But I'm going to start with The Marrow of Tradition first. So this book is an awesome read. This book was published in 1901. It is a novel about African American life in a time of like white supremacy movement, I guess is the best way I can describe it. So I really loved this book, and although it's a fictional story, I think it really reflects an important part of our history and something that is not really taught in schools. And I know that for a fact. I mean, I was a teacher of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for a few years, so I know that a lot of these things, a lot of the books that I've talked about in the past, also, Eola Leroy, for example, it I think they're important because you don't learn about that stuff in history. So I love this book just as much as those. So this book follows two plots, and eventually those plots sort of collide. So it follows the first character, which is Major Carteret. He owns he's a white man. He owns the newspaper in the town, and it leans towards articles that reflect white supremacy, I guess is the way to describe it. It never really talks about whether there's other things, but it's a lot of white supremacy type reading. And the white community is outraged in the beginning of this book at the black community because they finally start speaking up and speaking out about lynchings and other things, and the white people are extremely angry. And then it also follows Major Carteret's wife and his child and his niece, and they're very rich. They live in they're aristocrats, and it follows their plot as well. I don't want to give away too much. And then the second large plot, follows an African American doctor who has studied abroad. He studied in Europe, and he's now coming back to his southern hometown to start his own practice. And there are other subplots as well. There's a lot of characters in this book, and there follows a lot of little plots in between as well, dealing with Major Carteret's family and the doctor's wife. And the doctor's wife also is kind of a larger plot. She's half black and half white, and she's also the half sister of Major Carteret's wife. Olivia is her name. So basically, all of these plots come together once a white woman is murdered, and the story goes from there. So if you study this book, or if you read the foreword in this book, at least in this edition that I have, it explains that this author actually wrote this book in response to a lot of race riots that were occurring at the time. This book, like I said, was published in 1901. Did I say that at the beginning? I think I was correct in saying that it was 1901. Yes, 1901. So there were race riots, a lot of unrest going on at this time. And he wrote this sort of in response to that. I think this book really reflects that the end of slavery did not end oppression for the African American race. And it's kind of sad because we're still dealing with it today, and it's now well over a century later. I think these books are so important, and I have an older copy here, but if you're interested in reading these types of books, even ones that I've talked about before, like Eola Leroy, for example, I think they're really important, and I think that they really shed light on things that I know myself I probably wouldn't have known about had I not been so well read in all of these books. Um, at one point in my life, um, probably right after college, I spent a good year probably just searching out all kinds of African American literature because I was interested. After reading a couple of books in college, it really piqued my interest in learning about things that I had never learned in school. So I think that it's important. I think this is a really great book. I think that it's an important book, and I really loved it. I know that's weird to say, especially with these books that deal with tougher topics, but I do. I think they're important, and these authors really have a talent for bringing tough subjects and writing an enjoyable read, something that's easy to read, something that's easy to understand and easy to get through. And I really commend these authors for that. I think it's really, really wonderful. And The Marrow of Tradition is something I definitely recommend. The next book that I want to talk about is Tess of the Dubervilles by Thomas Hardy. And I was almost going to say something else. Oh my God. How could I forget Thomas Hardy? This book is fantastic. It's one of my all-time favorites, I think, right up there with Austen and Bronte. It was published in 1892, and this is also a very powerful book. None of these books, either of these books today, they're not feel-good books. This book really challenges sexual morality in Victorian England, and it specifically deals with rape and oppression of women. Um, I think this book is fabulous. It's well written. It's amazing. All of these books that I talk about, they were published more than a century ago in most cases. And for the time period, I think these authors were very brave. And okay, so this book follows Tess. She is the daughter of a poor peasant family. She has poor parents, and her father finds out early in the book that he is tied, or he is descended from an aristocratic high class family called the Dubervilles. And they have blood ties to this family and thus higher society. So, through a series of events, Tess is forced to go to the Duberville mansion house family dwelling and ask for help, and claim that she's kin. So she's a family member, and they do give her a job. She meets a family member named Alec, and he gives her a job as a poultry farmer on the farm and she'll get paid and she'll be able to help her family. Alec is a cruel and manipulative man. He is evil, and but Tess is forced to keep the job because her family has no other means of living. It's either keep the job or starve. And she feels a responsibility, so she sort of deals with his presence and his comments, and even though she fears what he might do. Her parents, on the other hand, urge her to kind of form a connection with him and marry him, despite his character. I tell you, sometimes those times are really strange. But back then, a woman didn't have any choice. You needed to marry in order to have some sort of financial stability in your life. So that's where the story starts. That's where the story takes off. It's written in several parts. And I also want to say that this book follows a lot of years. So it starts out when Tess is a teenager, and it follows her well into adulthood. And throughout this book, she's haunted by the events of the past. This book deals with the loss of virginity and how that can really damage a woman a woman's standing, or any prospects that she may have had, are now damaged because of that. But having said all that, as you follow Tess throughout the book, there's a lot of character development. Tess has to learn to speak up for herself, and that was even dangerous in this time. Um, and she has to deal with the past and learn to manage it in a way so that it doesn't constantly keep control over her. And it also speaks to the moral treatment of men towards women during this time, I think. And I think this was, during this time, it was sort of the beginning stirrings of women starting to feel like, they should have some control over their lives, and over their futures, despite, without men controlling them. So I said that this was one of my favorite books, right up there with Austen and Bronte, but it's not a happy story like you would find in Austen or Bronte. This is a book very much, again, of the time period. I'm always amazed at, although this book is of the time period, it's very much standing up for something that went on a lot during that time period. So, these authors that always bring these challenging subjects to life in that time always really amaze me. And there's a lot of symbolism in this book. If you give it a shot, you'll see that right off the bat. The symbolism is really easy to see. But also, I think the reason I love this book so much is I feel so much for Tess. I absolutely love Tess. I adore Tess. I feel so much for her. She sort of jumps out of the page for me. And a lot of books they do. But I think this book especially. And, she really suffers at the hands of society, at the hands of the beliefs and values of, not only men, but women of that time as well. And I guess, at the core of this novel is about the treatments of people. And I really recommend this book. Tess of the Dubervilles is wonderful. If any of these books seem interesting to you, I would definitely go on Goodreads or different blogs and read some reviews, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I just find them to be amazing books. And Tess of the Dubervilles I've read a few times in my life. The Marrow of Tradition I've read, I think, twice only. It's been quite a few years since I read that book last, but Tess of the Dubervilles I've read a few times. So that is all I have for you. Those are the two books that I wanted to speak about today. I hope you're enjoying this series. I hope you're enjoying, me talking about classics. There are just so many out there that I don't think are talked about enough. And I absolutely love all of these books that I talk about. So I hope you all have a wonderful day. Let me know if you've read any of these, either of these, and I would love to talk to you about it. These books are just so amazing to me, in my eyes. And yeah, so please like and subscribe and comment, and I will see you all later. Bye.